What's the Car Talk podcast?
Hello and welcome back to the Car Talk podcast and season 3. Happy New Year. Matty, can you believe we've been doing it for 3 years now? It's quite crazy.
3 years, 3 seasons. Happy New Year, everybody. And it's much the same shit, different day, isn't it, Bayley?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, the plan is obviously just to carry on as we are because we think the format's pretty good, I think. And obviously get more guests on this year, as always. Shall we start off with the car news, Matty? Because we're going to talk about some various things later, aren't we? Which is quite ironic, but everyone will sort of listen to that.
So starting with one of perhaps the biggest news stories this week, you might think anyway, and it's the Tesla Model 3 and Model Y. The prices have been reduced by up to £8,000. What do we think of that? Because I have a few opinions.
I think that's good because I think Teslas are overpriced as it is. I assume it's because they want to fit in with the current market of other sort of electric cars, I'm assuming. Is that right?
Well, Tesla won't admit that. They say that they feel inflation has come down. Don't know what planet they're on, but I would like to be on that planet. And as a result, they are passing that lower inflation onto the customers by reducing their models by 20%, £8,000. So yeah, it's my theory on it is just like you said, that the market has caught up to them. People in 2023 are now no longer as delusional as they were in 2022. Thus, the Tesla isn't as people are realising that they're pretty overrated.
Yes.
Pretty poorly built. Maybe they're hating on Elon a little bit. But most of all, they're realising that the Hyundai Ioniq 5 and almost everything they're producing is better.
It is indeed. I haven't been in the Tesla before, but I've heard they're quite cheap inside and just not very well built, obviously, because they have to use sustainable materials. But yeah, I think compared to the rival electric cars, I think they are lacking a little bit.
Well, I guess inside and the technology and everything is very futuristic, and then there's obviously a lot of gimmicks like whoopee cushions on the seats. You can have a open fire on your iPad screen. But to look at, they've never really been. They haven't got it, have they? They're very plain looking.
They're just sort of like NPC cars, aren't they? Just like all the non-playable characters driving around.
Oh my god, that is! I was literally going to say that, but I didn't know what the name was. They are literally like on a racing track where you have like the background cars on the thing, and like that is literally what they are.
All the people in GTA drive them.
Yeah, they have no personality. These cars, Teslas whatsoever. They don't. Like they're very this, that, the other, but they literally have no personality. And
I agree.
Maybe people have hit the ceiling with them. You know what I mean?
Well, speaking of electric cars, Matty, there's a new one, and it's a new Sony electric car. Now, what they've done is partnered up with Honda.
Seen
that. Collab with, obviously, and they're making a new EV, and the new brand name's called Afeela. It's quite a snazzy name, isn't it? Sounds like a flower.
Fila or Afeela? Afeela.
Yes.
Sounds a bit
feel
sort
it
of
in my
noncy.
fingers. It won't launch until 2026, and it's apparently partnered up with Epic Games for like the virtual reality, or is that right? No, augmented reality. I think that's the same thing in the like interior and stuff like that, which is quite interesting. But what do you think of the design, Matty? It's interesting.
Ooh. So it's sort of like a fastback design?
This is very plain, isn't it? It's just sort of like a thing with some wheels on it. And then that's it.
I'm forgetting all of the terms today, but you know, like the way it scrapes back into the boot. Kind of reminds me of a Jag XJ or something like that.
Yeah, but, I actually quite like the shape, like the silhouette of it, but I just don't know about the...
Yeah, I do. I think there's cool aspects to it. Yeah, definitely.
If you notice the badge as well on the front, is actually like, it looks like it's a holograph, doesn't it? But I think it's just like a screen to show the name of it, the Fila name. So that's that.
Well, I mean that there is a problem with that name, isn't there? Whereby if a paedophile, let's make no bones about it, goes into a school and drives off and kidnaps a little girl or indeed a little boy, it does happen. You know, it'd be like, could you imagine the story in like the Warrington Herald or the Liverpool Echo or whatever, and the man was seen driving out of the school gates in a Fila.
Okay, I can see that's not going to end well, but I don't think
playing on the I feel it in my fingers.
Exactly, I'm glad you got that bit there.
Oh god.
Moving on anyway. Have you got anything else?
I feel her up in me feeler.
Yes. This is just going to be
let's.
This is just silly.
This is going to make the promo video, isn't it?
It is.
Just some quick fire headlines. Been a very good week for car news actually this week. Normally we're on complaining that it's a bad week for car news. But yeah, this week grey has been named as 2022's favourite colour of car once again. That news is not so good. And also the first MOT for your car, if you've bought it brand new, could be after 4 years instead of 3. And there's been a lot of talk on Twitter this week as well about getting rid of the grandfather rights for classic cars and stopping the fact that they can be exempt from having an MOT. But yeah, even with new cars, it could be after 4 years instead of 3. I suppose that's just due to reliability, but you know, depending on how many miles you do, your tyres could need replacing any time, really, couldn't they?
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, I suppose if you get a service every year, I think that's the more important one, isn't it? Because that's actually keeping it tip top.
Yeah, the amount of cars that come in and people I know that just don't bother with servicing it is like, what are you doing? You know what I mean?
I love seeing those TikTok videos of like people's cars that are just so absolutely messy inside, and this guy completely just makes it new again. That's really satisfying, those videos. Yeah. It's like, how can people leave so much stuff in their car? It's ridiculous.
I like those valeters who put the stripes in the carpet.
Yes, yeah.
Are you on it?
Or in the seats, the leather seats. Especially if they've got like white or cream leather and it's like completely brown. And then they clean it and it's like very nice.
Stop it. There's a weight in my heart there. And finally, another little quick fire thing. We'll do a round for 2023 for the first time of who the hell is going to buy this. Bailey, you're actually a fan of this car, aren't you? So you know, on this sort of theme that we've dipped in and out of, we've had something like the Smart 42 Brabus and weird cars like that. Citroen Ami, the car that I know and love. Bailey just knows it. But you'd actually buy this, Bailey. It's the Citroen Ami buggy.
Yes, I would. It's essentially just an off-roady version, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's got little sort of like metal gates as the doors, and the headlights are protected. Out. You know, it's got like cladding over the headlights just in case something hits you with real force while you're going 26 miles an hour top speed.
I don't know why has it got that on the front? That's brilliant.
I really don't know, but 1,000 more examples of this have been made, so obviously someone is buying this.
Yes,
it's a miracle.
I would like to see them on I like to see them replace golf carts. Actually, I think they'd be quite they would work as a golf cart.
That would be really cool, actually. Yeah, and like you could just go to golf, like rather than golf outfits or costumes or whatever, just in full camo with like a gun or something and playing golf. Yes.
Oh, we're going to make a golf version of that, and it's going to be.
We're going to create a whole new sport, a whole new motorsport.
The Ami golf race. Yeah, that'd be brilliant.
Speaking of golfs, new sketches or actual images of how the new Golf could look have been posted on the Auto Express website. I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to say that Volkswagen have given us exclusive rights to this. But the interesting thing is that the facelift of the Golf, which is due this year, is going to be the last Golf with an internal combustion engine. Which begs the question, will the new Golf even be a thing, or will it be replaced by the current controversial Volkswagen ID range?
Possibly, yeah.
And the answer, the answer is, I've got the answer. You don't have to speculate. The answer is, that possibly both. Volkswagen believe that the Golf could very well carry on and be sold alongside the ID3, but it could even replace the ID3, but just keep its name, or it could be the Golf ID. Have you seen the images, Bailey? I think it looks a lot better than the current Golf that we've got, with the stupid B&M light in the grille and everything like that. This actually looks quite good.
I agree with you, yeah.
Finished in a nice shade of blue as well, yeah. And also Volkswagen have vowed that they are, and I think this is actually for the facelifted Golf, they're vowing that they are going to get rid of those stupid haptic button things where it's just one button and you press it and it illuminates two haptic buttons and you just press it and it's awful. So I'll be glad to see that. Honestly, it is, because it's on the Mark 8 Golf at the minute, and I hired one of them to go to London a few months ago, and as well as sending me constant notifications to say I was exceeding the speed limit, eco tips and things like that, it had the stupid haptic buttons, but it wasn't on everything. It was just like on the auto stop start and that, and the lights, and it's really, really, I cannot stress how shit that is, and I'll be glad to see it go.
Well, speaking of sort of moving on with like current models, I suppose you could say, there is a new Audi RS6, Matty. I think I sent you this when it got revealed, and you said you quite liked it, didn't you?
I really did. Yeah, I did say that.
Have you changed your mind?
Well, let me get this up here. Audi R.
I'll tell you a little bit about it. It's obviously going to. When I say obviously, it's kind of saddening. Actually, it's going to be an EV Audi RS6. So it's not really an RS6 anymore. It's missing the V8, of course. It's going to have 800 horsepower, which is quite ridiculous actually, in like a family sort of car. And it will use tech from the Audi e-tron and the Taycan, which is kind of expected, really. But I don't know about the looks, Matty, at all. Actually, you quite liked it.
No, yeah, absolutely. You. Let me just tell you why you're wrong. Okay, so supercars, right? For example, we very rarely. I've never drove a supercar at all, but I trust that they are an absolute scream and that they are great to drive, right? Mm-hmm. The Audi RS range, however, I've never driven an RS6, but I've driven an RS3, I've driven an RS4. Is it an RS4? Do they exist?
Yes.
They do, don't they?
The Avant.
Yes, or is it RS5? Yeah, anyway.
All of them.
I've driven all of them, bar the RS6. And yes, they're great, but they're... and I might cause controversy here, but they're not much to write home about, okay? Mm-hmm. So this is one of those cars where I can forgive it for being an EV, and that's because it's going to have 800 horsepower and use all this tech and everything like that. But also, the looks, I think it just looks absolutely fantastic. It's low, it's squat, it remains an estate car, but it's still, I just think it looks absolutely fantastic. It really, honestly. And you can get it in like a fastback edition, and like, oh wow. I can't wait to see one of these on the road, to be fair.
I can.
This is my favourite car already.
I'm sorry, I have to disagree with you when you said about I haven't driven Audis, but I've been in an RS6. Not the C8, the C7 version, which is the sort of mid teens, 2010. Sorry, and it is stupidly fast. But the noise for me is the main thing. But if it's missing that, and I don't know, it's just a bit. I think it's a bit bulky. Mind you, this is a concept though, so.
Is the exhaust note on an RS6 the same as the RS3? Because honestly, I can tell you that the the exhaust noise on an RS3 is mediocre at best.
Yeah, the new one, because it's muffled, it's got all the regulation stuff in it. But the C7 C63, the C7 RS6 is very loud, and it's very raspy like a raspy V8. It's very nice.
Yeah.
So I'm going to miss that a lot in this. But well, I'm glad you like it, Matty. I'm going to move on because I don't want to talk about it anymore. Jesus, I just completely buggered my mic there. I've got another electric car, Matty, but this I do actually quite like the look of. It's called the Corvette E-Ray. I like the little play on name there. It's quite cool. And it's essentially the new Corvette C8, but it's got a hybrid engine. It's still got the 6.2 litre. Was it 6.2? It is 6.2 litre V8, but it's also got a hybrid engine electric motor thing alongside that. So that means you can get decent MPG, I suppose, which has pretty much been a non-existent thing in a muscle car, isn't it?
It's got to say decent MPG in a Corvette.
That'd be a first, wouldn't it? But what's interesting about this, obviously the normal Corvette is rear-wheel drive, but this is actually four-wheel drive, so we're going to get sort of two different versions, which I think is a great thing. There's good options there. And this cost about $100,000, which I think is, for the money, you get a lot of car for that. So yeah, I do like the look of that, and I like the sound of it. If it does make a sound. In EV, probably not. What do you think of it, Matty?
Corvette's never really done it for me. I'm looking at this now, and the outside looks good. The inside looks like, it almost reminds me of like a bit of a McLaren's interior. Like,
yeah.
The inside makes it look like a track car.
Well, that's essentially what the Corvette kind of is. It's always had that track orientation inside.
But it's going to weigh a lot, isn't it?
I'd imagine, yeah. I mean, it's got the engine plus the battery as well.
It's got the engine plus the battery.
And it's four-wheel drive. So it depends. If it still feels as good to drive as the normal petrol one, I think it will sell quite well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I think that's overall quite good. And it's going to have 655 horsepower, and it's going to do 0-60 in 2.5 seconds, which is actually very fast. That's like Veyron territory, if you think about it, for the money. It's a lot.
Yeah. Well, yeah, Bailey, I'm glad you liked that. I'm going to move on because I don't want to talk about that anymore. Question for you, Bailey, for our first podcast back. I appreciate this is quite a difficult question for you, but how much do you value the police?
It's a good question. It depends what... I mean, obviously I value that they're saving lives and doing all sorts, but then at the same time it's just like, well, so I was saying to my mate actually today, because we saw like unmarked police cars going past, and I said, I bet they're literally chasing someone just going 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. Whereas if I write down there's a murder, they'll be like, we'll get back to that. So that's another opinion I have. But what's the question related to though? In this aspect,
the question is related to BMW, because BMW don't value the police, it seems. They have told the police, no, you can't have any more police cars from us. That's it, that's your lot, you can't have any more. And that's simply because of supply chain issues. So if you're wondering whose side that BMW are on, is it yours, the paying customer, or is it also a paying customer, the police? The answer is that they're on your side. So next time you slag off BMW for their big grills and the reputation of their drivers, just remember though, they're on the driver's side, because from now on the police are going to have to keep buying sort of, I don't know, what they're going to have to buy. Anything but a BMW, really.
Yeah. Well, I've seen they started driving like Peugeots and stuff now around this area.
Well, Liverpool is very poor. 10 years ago, back when Hyundais got good again, they bought a load of Hyundai i30 estates. But now they're in Kia Sportages.
Oh, that's a bit...
And you think you couldn't catch a cold in one of them, could you really?
No, probably not.
1.7 diesel.
That's awful, isn't it?
But anyway, yeah, that's a bit of good news from Germany. If you all got the FTM attitude.
Yeah.
Fuck the Matrix, it's called in Liverpool. But yeah, if you think fuck the feds, then BMW are with you on that one.
Yeah. I've got a final car that I would like to talk about, Matty, and it's a new, not so new Aston Martin. It's another DBS that we don't need, but it's called the 770, as in 770. It's going to be the most powerful DBS ever made, with 770 horsepower, which is quite ironic, isn't it? Because it's also named that.
I wonder what came first.
They're keeping the V12, of course, and it comes with, but it's a special edition of the DBS sort of thing. But it comes with, let me just get it up. It comes with Sports Plus seats and carbon fibre gear paddle shifters. So that's all that you kind of get on it, and some new wheels. That's it.
I don't like the Aston Martin DBS. I used to.
Do you not?
I used to. I think it used to be a really, really sort of gorgeous looking car, and I think the old one really hasn't aged at all. But this one, I mean, if you think about it, it's meant to be a GT car, isn't it, really? And this one, it looks too much. It looks too shouty, too aggressive. It has absolutely no beauty at all, apart from the arse end. And it's just got this horrible big gaping grille. It's like the Peugeots from about 10 years ago, with the huge, just open-mouthed grille, and it's too sculpted and too creased. It's just strip it back, Aston Martin. Take some inspiration from Bond.
Well, it's quite a mixed bag this month, isn't it? A lot of us don't like a car, and then someone else doesn't like a car.
Yeah.
But that's all my car news I've got, Matty. Is there anything else you'd like to talk about for this month?
Final thing from me, which I'd like to talk about, we touched on it last week on the podcast. Our friend and yours, Mr. Clarkson, has landed himself in hot water again. We obviously all know the comments that he made about Meghan Markle, but this week, Bayley pointed out to me, an official apology has been released on Instagram. Yeah. What do we reckon?
I mean, obviously we've talked about this before, but what he said obviously is pretty out of order, really. But
we now know some context behind it. Do we agree? Do we disagree?
I'm not really one to disagree or agree, but I'll just say, look, just move on from it and just put it down as a mistake. That's what I tend to do in life. If I say something wrong or do something wrong, I'll be like, well, I'm sorry, but here we go, move on. Just get on with life.
Yeah.
And I think these people, there'll be people that always will just hate him for it, and it's just like, because they don't have anything else to do.
A lot of people have come to his defence, though, this week, in talking about the cancel culture in this country and everything like that. People have pointed out Jo Brand, a female comedian who's been 100 for about 10, 20, 30 years. She's still 100, and she's still talentless, and she's said some comments as well, but hasn't been cancelled. Same with the likes of Miriam Margolius, who was calling people cripples, wished Boris Johnson dead. I mean, I'm kind of with her on that one, but the whole point was that she didn't get cancelled. Meanwhile, Clarkson has been dropped from Millionaire. Has he been dropped from his Amazon stuff yet?
Well, I was reading something earlier, and it's rumoured that he is, apparently, which kind of is a shame.
People are arguing of double standards, and yeah, it is. I agree with what Jeremy said in the sense of where he said that when things happen, people campaigned for an apology.
Yes.
And he's saying, this is my apology. But like I said, I think I said this last week, some things will never be good enough for some people. So, yeah, I'm apprehensive to see where this is going to lead and what will happen in the end.
Yeah, me too.
It's a little bit like when he punched that producer in the face all over again, where it was like, what is going to happen next?
It seems that a lot of people don't like him for whatever reason. Maybe they're just jealous.
Yeah, I wonder why. I wonder why they don't like him.
Anyway, moving on from Jeremy, we haven't really got a specific theme, which is quite unusual for us. I mean, not really, because we never plan anything.
I thought it was car crashes.
Yes, it kind of is. Matty and I have been unfortunate enough to be involved in crashes with our own cars, which is obviously another sad thing. We're just going to sort of talk about it, I suppose, aren't we? Release the anger that we have inside.
My Saxo crash hasn't appeared on my YouTube channel yet, so if you are still listening to the podcast at this point, then this is exclusive information that I have not broadcast on my YouTube channel yet. So this theme, Bailey, we thought of it due to the fact that I made a bit of a boo-boo in me Saxo last week.
And would you like to explain what happened with that?
No.
Why not?
Well, what it was, my Saxo was parked stationary without me in it, and a horse just bolted and swatted the front of the car.
Right, yeah, that's not...
So that's it for the podcast. We're going to plug our social medias. Bailey, would you like to go first?
No, you didn't get run over by a horse. What happened?
Okay, here's the real story. I will actually explain the road because some people might be listening who will be like, I know that road. Probably not, but I was coming off the M62, going down. So I've come off the M62 and I'm leading onto Barring Park Road by the rocket flyover in Liverpool. As you'll know, it's a little bit like Liverpool's version of Spaghetti Junction. Great place to have a crash. Anyway, and I'm turning off and there's like a bend, not a particularly sharp bend. You're coming off a 40 zone into another 40 zone. I regret to inform you that I wasn't going 40. I was going probably a bit faster, definitely a bit faster than that. And I'm approaching this bend and I'm just in my element, really. I'm enjoying driving my car. I'm looking forward to getting home from work. And I approached this bend neither with my foot on the accelerator nor with it on the brake either. And I get onto the bend and all of a sudden it hits me where I say, I'm going too fast here. And next minute the car spins and I don't want to exaggerate this whole thing, but I think it did spin twice.
Wow.
And it spun twice and it hit the wall. There's like a barricade wall because you're sort of still on the motorway but not, and it's going into the sort of, housing and whatever things are there. So I hit this concrete wall and we'll put a picture on screen, and my car, the bonnet of my car is facing, it's diagonal on across the two lanes, or across the lane one, and the bonnet is facing towards lane 2. So I was like, okay. And I went to start the car to try and get out of harm's way, and the battery was dead.
For God's sake.
So I was like, shit. And that weren't even like the biggest issue at the time, because it was like, I've got no lights and not even any hazard lights either, and I'm blocking off this lane, and immediately behind me is a sharp bend that comes off the M62 motorway. I'm kind of in the shit here. So I was stood there like, what the fuck do I do? And I couldn't get to, like, because of the traffic coming past in lane 2, and that was where my kind of bonnet was, closer to lane 2. I couldn't really get under the bonnet without, like, sort of really being in a vulnerable position. Yeah. So there was nothing for it. I had to ring the police and I had to say, could you send one of your finest Kia Sportages down to come and get me out of this hole that I've got myself into? And I had to explain to the woman over the phone that I described myself as white British. I had to give my address, I had to give my car details. And she said, yes, not a problem. We'll send someone down. There's someone on a route on that anyway, so they will just stop and help you. And I was like, well, you might feel very relaxed there, love, in your call centre, but I'm in harm's way here. Could you just fucking get the blues and twos on and get them here. This is a fucking emergency. You know what I mean? Fuck the people going over 1 mile an hour. I was going fucking 30 miles an hour over the limit. And
this proves the
look
point.
What's
This
happened.
proves the point, doesn't it?
You need to help me. So I'm stood there, and I regret to inform everybody that Merseyside police just did not turn up.
Wow.
So I was like, oh God. Anyway, by this point, a taxi driver had stopped in the pub car park next to me, and he might have been nervous as well because he was a little bit sort of abrupt, but he was like, "You cannot be here, what are you doing?" And I was like, "Mate, you know, I understand I'm in this situation, but we need to get out of this now." And he was like, "Get your bonnet up, get your bonnet up." I was like, because the batteries died. So we got the bonnet up, and it turns out, and he was going, "I can't believe you didn't know this before." And it turned out that when we got the bonnet up on the car, when I'd hit the wall, the engine, the battery had come dislodged and disconnected.
So all you have to do is put it get together, basically.
I reconnected the battery, and the taxi driver stopped the traffic, and I pulled into the pub car park and really got a good look of the damage. The Saxo is in need of a front bumper. The Citroen badge and the grille is all like chipped and stoved in. The headlight is loose and cracked, so I've ordered a new headlight, and the little moulding underneath is gone. But other than that, I got off pretty lightly, really.
That's good to hear, obviously, but obviously that's I suppose it's a learning curve, isn't it? We all have to have little spin outs or something.
Well, it is a learning curve, and I think when the video goes out on my channel, I'm gonna get a bit of hate for it. But the point is that I'm obviously on the whole a sensible driver because I drive for a living, and I've had that car like 4 years and never had a crash that was, you know, my own doing. But it just shows that you're only human, aren't you? Because I weren't accelerating on purpose, and I obviously didn't brake either, but I weren't intentionally driving like a hooligan. Yeah. And you know, it happened, and at the time the adrenaline was like, oh my, I can't believe I've just spun my car. I was like, this is a story for the grandchildren, isn't it? And then like you sort of like calm down and you're like, fucking hell, that was a bit, you know, it was a bit stupid doing that, but it happens, doesn't it? These things happen, and everybody's got a story of a crash, especially the older people, you know what I mean?
I've obviously, with my dad's Mazda, if you remember that, I did sort of similar situation, but obviously mine was a lot...
Yes, why don't you tell us, Bailey, about how you crashed your dad's Mazda MX-5 in the McDonald's drive-thru?
It wasn't in the McDonald's drive-thru.
Sorry, outside the hairdressers.
No, it was... I swear I've spoken about this before on the channel or somewhere.
No, I think you should tell us it all again. It's only fair, well, even Stevens.
How about I tell you my one that was recent, and then we'll talk about that.
Have you had multiple crashes now?
Yes.
Oh, no.
Anyway, yeah, so the one, basically... my version of the crash that happened literally the day before New Year's Eve. Sorry, Christmas Eve, not New Year's Eve. I was basically finishing up in the gym. It was about 4 p.m. I think. And what's really
sorry, is this just? Sorry to interrupt. Is this just you reminding us all that you've built up and bulked up now?
No, it's context for what's happening.
Just get my coat and go.
It's context for the crash.
Yeah.
And I actually, what's really funny is I actually said I don't really want to go to the gym today, and I ended up going anyway. And I kind of wish I didn't now, because obviously the crash happened as I was exiting the gym facility. And basically,
got to do it for the games.
Exactly. And basically, what happened was there's a slight ramp from the main road to the gym car park. When I say a slight ramp, it's probably about like a 45-degree up ramp thing. And I was going up that basically in my lane. It's a 2-lane one, and this guy who was obviously going to the gym as well, he is in this like massive Hyundai van thing. I don't know what van it was, but
i800,
probably that. Yeah, actually, it was one of those, and he basically he came off the main road and swung right round into the place. And obviously, I saw him, but I basically stopped completely. I couldn't get him into reverse quick enough, so he ended up going into the side of my. Well, not the side. It was sort of like the front right sort of angle wing part, and I was obviously I was really pissed off because it's just like, well, of course it's happened now.
Yeah. And
yeah, I obviously got his all details, but the damage it's not significant. It's mainly all body work. It's basically a big dent in my right side arch and sort of half the front bumper. The front bumper sort of cracked in places with the paint coming off on that. It's a sizable dent, I'd say. So I'm going to have to get like you, Matt, I would get a front bumper done and a front arch done. But I'm still waiting for the insurance to be nice and tell me what's going on. Because they're sort of
take him to the cleaners.
Yeah, basically. But that was my sort of crash. It wasn't obviously my fault, whereas yours was. So that's kind of the only difference.
Well, yeah. Why don't you sort of make it equals prequels and tell us about the one that was your fault? Because you've had multiple crashes, haven't you? So I've only had the one, you see. So
yeah, all right. Well, I've had about. I don't know actually. I've had two, but I've also been hit into another time, but I wasn't in the car.
I've been hit into, yeah.
So that I wouldn't really count
in
that
the
one.
Saxo.
But
yeah.
So the one
the Saxo now is like a accordion, it's swatted in at both ends, and it just sort of bunched in now more than it used to be. But anyway, carry on.
Yeah. So the one of my dad's car, I don't like bringing it up all the time, but it's happened. And this happened in lockdown 2020. And I was really excited. I was 19 at the time, and I got insured on my dad's MX-5 Mark II, and obviously I was basically driving around. I got insured on it for a week, in weeks. So you get a week, and then I'd come off it, and then not drive for a couple of weeks, and then go back on that again. Basically, it was temporary insurance.
Yeah.
Just to drive around in because there was nothing to do, and no one was working. It was just it was quite a nice time to just drive around. But anyway, it was one time. It was in July, I think, and it had rained all day. It was really hot, but it was rained, so it was all greasy on the road. And
Bracknell.
Yes, in Bracknell. And I was coming back from my girlfriend's at the time, and there's this roundabout. Well, there's several roundabouts in Bracknell because I think it has the most roundabouts in the UK in one town. I'm pretty sure. But I was coming off one particular one, and I don't really know. I can't remember if I was going fast or not, but it didn't feel fast. I think I was doing 30, and the speed limit was 40 on that road. So I was coming off the roundabout doing about 30, but I think because it was so slippery and the car didn't have a limited slip diff, I ended up spinning completely. I lost control of it, and it went off to the left. I tried to correct it, and it went off to the right, and then went straight into a barrier, in which I hit it probably about 30 miles an hour, so it completely buggered the whole front of the car.
Told it.
And I was like, what has just happened? And I was really basically in the shit, because I was like, well, this is my dad's car, and he's going to kill me. Luckily, there was some people in the pub next to it, pretty much next to where I crashed, that saw it and ran over, because they were just happened to be outside. A bunch of lads came over and said, you're right, and then we moved the car out of the way to the petrol station, which was next to it as well. And that was it. No one else was involved, but it was just a silly mistake, I suppose.
It's so sad, isn't it? And I definitely think with my one, my Saxo's definitely used one of its 9 lives there, because I could have easily hitting a concrete wall at however fast I was going. Could have easily totaled the car. To be fair, actually, so I'll tell you a crash that wasn't my fault, where I've been hit into just like you.
Yes.
The day before I was supposed to be coming down to Ascot for the first time to see you, but also the first time I've ever drove the car down to London. I'm sat at the lights on the way to work the day before, and with the handbrake on, and a woman literally hits me at 35 to 40 miles an hour, and just because I had the handbrake on, I didn't move too much, but as a result, the car, she hit the toe eye of the car, which was such a relief because there's still the whole the rear bumper, the same one, is still on it, and she didn't do any damage, hence why the same bumper is on and everything like that. But yeah, she hit the toe eye in her car, which is exposed on my Saxo. The toe eye is exposed because it's an old car, and she was hit me at quite a lot of speed. So it's a good job I had the handbrake on, and she completely ruined the front of her Corsa, completely ruined it. I assume she was on her phone. She wouldn't tell me at the time. That was the first experience of an actual crash that I'd had, because involving like another road user, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was scary, like, but I remember just saying like, oh yeah, my car's fine. And then we turned around and had a look at hers, and she was like, whoa, can I ring my husband? Yep, do what you want. You hit me. Compo claim.
Brilliant.
But yeah.
So that's our recent history on our crashes. It's quite ironic that we both had a crash, Matty, isn't it? Just sort of in the space of like a couple of weeks with each other.
You jinxed me.
I possibly did, yeah, because I think I sent you it, didn't I? When it happened, I was like, just damn it. It's like very annoying.
Yeah.
But yeah, it happens. Just have to move on and sort of look after the cars from now on. But yeah, so do you want to plug your social medias in, Matty?
Of course, if you're viewing this from Bayley's channel, then I also have my own channel. If you'd like to see more of me, it's Matty's Cars. You can also follow me on Instagram, which is Matty's Cars YT. And if you'd like to see pictures of me in a nightclub on New Year's Eve, then you can follow my personal Instagram, which is Matsgram99.
Excellent, thank you, Matty. And if obviously you want to subscribe to us here on the channel, I don't know why you would be watching this and unsubscribe to us, then that would be weird. But if you do want to subscribe to us, the buttons below. And if you want to follow us on all the social medias, we've got TikTok, which will be linked on the channel because I can't remember the name of it, and we've got Instagram, which is some car culture name as well. But if you want to follow, like Matty, if you want to follow my personal one, if you want to see me on a beach in midnight after New Year's Eve looking like a moron, then you can. It's Bayley Prickett 27. I think that wraps it up for this first one of the new year, doesn't it, Matty?
Yeah, it does. Hopefully a more light-hearted topic next week.
Yes, of course. We'll have a guest on hopefully next month, a returning guest, which you shall see. Yes, so have a good rest.
Is it Daniel Achterhouse? No, he's just being sorry.
He's been but anyway, we'll see you next time.